So yeah, you've got like sexy DJ set up, and I've got like kind of like, you know, knock off podcast setup. So you're sounding like all rich and beautiful in my ears. So it's all good.
Great. Yeah, it serves as it's my little like writing room. So I have my microphone for mumbling out some vocal ideas. It also works well for interviews on podcasts, Zoom
Yeah.
calls.
No, absolutely. And well, look, look, I'm gonna be completely honest right from the get go. Okay, I saw your latest album. I saw the artwork on the site that I use for, you know, for getting all my music from. Don't want to give him a plug. So I saw the artwork. And how old school is this? Because, you know, as we've already mentioned, I'm kind of old. How old school is this? I saw the artwork and I was like, I like that. And I like the title as well. So I'm gonna listen to that. Now have an open mind, Howard. Have an open mind. This could be anything. This could be trance, dance, grime, punk, whatever. And I just hit play and I was like, oh, I like this. Oh, this is, and that's how I discuss. That's how we're sat here now. Is that complete old school kind of? I like the artwork, and then I discovered the band from there. So that's my being completely honest. And I've kind of gone back and done a little bit of research about the band, but not too much because obviously, you know, I want to talk to you about the band. But how was it putting the new album together? You know, how did it come together? And was it difficult to record? Because I'm presuming there was bits in lockdown. Well, I know there was bits in lockdown because you can hear it in the lyrics as well as having read the press and stuff. But as a lyricist myself, I feel your pain, brother.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, I mean, it was a weird experience for sure, as everyone in the world who has been alive for the past few years can attest. But when it first hit, we had just released Dead Star, our EP Dead Star, and we had a bunch of tours planned. And tours got closed down, but the numbers in Rochester, our hometown, the COVID numbers were pretty low. So we were still able to meet up. Things started to get a little worse. So we started to meet up and mask up. And we put like a plastic bare sheets around the drum set, just for like added protection. And luckily our rehearsal studio and recording studio jam space is pretty large. So we were able to stay pretty far apart in there as well. And so we jammed for a little bit and we were like, well, what are we going to do to, you know, who knows when we're going to be able to tour again? I guess we should use this time to try to write a bunch of material. And then we just kept jamming and jamming and jamming, ended up with hours and hours of ideas. And I started to sift through them and kind of organize things into what I thought like flowed well, what thematically fit, you know, together pretty well. And we ended up on, ended up settling on doing 3 records of it because they all were kind of different stylistically, and Burden being the first of the 3. And yeah, so as the pandemic kept getting worse and worse, we had all this ideas anyways. We said no more jamming. We'll all just like work from home. And I took all the tracks home and I started cutting and moving things around. And then I would send stuff to the guys and be like, what do you think about this? And we started working remotely that way. Just kind of I would send stuff to them, get feedback. And then really from there, we didn't play together until until like vaccines started really to come about.
Right.
So like when we tracked the record, we still had all our plastic and everything up, and it would only ever be, I was the engineer, so it would be myself and then either the bass player or the drummer, or for when it was guitar stuff and singing, it was just me. So we were never all in the same room really after the initial jam sessions of kind of creating the ideas, and then all the refinements from there came from us working individually and then recording time in the studio. So it was definitely unlike anything we'd ever really done before that way. We did a little bit of that sort of piecemeal stuff with Dead Star. We just started to experiment with it, but we figured just to be safe, we would, there's no need, there's no need to have extra people there, then let's not have them there. So it was definitely interesting in that regard. And I think, I mean, as you said, you listened to the record and the lyrics, it's definitely our darkest record I think we've ever made. So there's just a lot going on. So yeah, it was a pretty strange experience.
Yeah, and what you've described there is, personally, as a band member myself, it's almost like the opposite of how you would envisage the perfect recording scenario, really, because you bounce off each other, you work off each other, and to be only having one person in there at any particular time, and socially distancing, but that creates a musical distance as well, and just that process you were saying about actually kind of like, okay, piecing these songs together and sending them out to the guys and going, okay, what do you think? That in itself is just there's no other way of saying it. It's just fucking weird.
Yeah. It is strange. I mean, it's sort of how we've always started with that sort of aspect. All of our stuff, usually 99% of it, starts with jams, and then I'll take the tracks home and I'll listen through and say, like, out of that 2-hour jam session, this 10 minutes was really cool, and I'll cut that up, and then we'll work on it together from there. Maybe I'll do a couple tweak things, like, hey, we're adding an extra beat here. What if we chop that off and change the time signature? Or, what if we simplify this part here and there? And I'll send that to them, but still we usually are working together at that point. But yeah, it was, I don't know. I think also it kind of worked for what the record was about, and like the feeling, like, beyond the pandemic stuff, I had a lot of family stuff kind of change and get pretty stressful and awful over the past few years. And so everything was just kind of piling up at once. And it was just, like, I was in a really, really dark place, and we were jamming and writing this dark stuff. And I was like, well, you know what? Like, this should be, let's just, instead of like trying to make this more comfortable, let's keep this uncomfortable and like have the record be a reflection of all of this stuff. And I think it worked in that regard.
Absolutely. There is it's a very atmospheric record for a start. And that's what drew me into it straight away. And there's a lot of honesty in the lyrics. And so it's no surprise to me to hear you say that there's a lot of stuff going on, not just the pandemic, because there's some lyrics in there where you are, the best lyrics are when people are brutally honest and usually about themselves. And funnily enough, the weird tangential thing is that's when comedy works best as well. When you just lay yourself open and you say the way you think about stuff, and people either laugh about it because you look ridiculous to them, or people are laughing thinking, yeah, I know where he's coming from. And I got that from your lyrics, not laughter, but but very much there was an internal struggle, and that feeling of restlessness, or that feeling of lying in bed at night and a million thoughts going through your head. One of them being, if I don't get any sleep, this is going to get even worse, and that thought is the one that keeps you awake. It really hit home for me. It really hit home.
Yeah, it was definitely scary for me in regards to like writing lyrics like that. And when we were kind of doing the lyrics for the record, I tried being a little more ambiguous, a little more like metaphorical with a lot of things. That's usually we're not as sort of direct and on the nose. But as I was doing it, it just didn't feel right. And with where my mental state was, it felt like kind of dishonest, and it felt dishonest is really the word, and it just didn't feel right. And so I was like, well, the exercise I did was, as a just sort of practice for myself, I started writing some of the lyrics, not ever intending them to be the final lyrics. It was like almost like a journal entry. Like, I'm going to write these lyrics and they're going to be just for me, like it's right. Just for me. And then you know, I'm listening back and I'm reading them and I'm like, I don't know, this actually could be good. And then usually once I get to a point where I have some decent ideas, I'll send stuff to Scott, our drummer, who helps out with a lot of the lyrics. And he's a lot faster at writing lyrics than I am. So I'll send him, you know, a verse and an idea for the chorus, or a chorus and a couple lines for a verse, and he'll send me back a full page full of lyrics. I'll look through his lyrics and I'll say, you know, I don't really like a lot of this, but these 3 lines are great. And then I'll build off those 3 lines. And then, so yeah, I got to a point where I had written these lyrics that were just for, I thought they were going to be just for me. At least I was telling myself while I wrote it. And then I started feeling pretty good about it. Sent it to the guys and I was like, I don't know, man. Like, cause we don't even really talk about this stuff as a band, you know, like they didn't really know that we didn't talk about the problems that I was having, you know, like we show up and we jam and we work and then we go, you know? So it was really scary. And it was scary for me to put a lot of myself into it that way, in a way that I hadn't really done before. But looking back on it now, it's definitely probably the record I'm most proud of at this point because of that, I think.
Yeah. And the thing is as well is that what came across to me is as I alluded to earlier, was the honesty, because that's what you connect with. And it's funny that you were saying it felt that, you tried to approach it a different way and it felt dishonest. And that is without doubt what I connected with was that honesty and that openness. And it kind of, it also suits the mood of the record, but it suits the mood of the time as well, and there's things in there that people can really, really identify with, because it just so happens everybody had, a shit 2020.
Yeah.
I mean, I know exactly how you feel. Tours lined up, everything ready to go, and then no. And the title as well. The title is just absolutely spot on. It is that, the burden of restlessness, of being put in that situation, of being put in that box. But I think that's incredibly brave. Which sounds patronizing. I'm sorry for that, but it is brave to put yourself out there and put yourself in your music, especially when you haven't, like, when your band members aren't even aware of this. And it must have felt kind of like going to the doctors and saying, is this okay? To the other guys. And
yeah, I mean, a little bit. Yeah, it definitely, because I didn't know if they want it, with being so much about like what it was in me being in my own head. I didn't know if it felt like too sort of like
self-obsessed,
personal. Yeah. But at the same time, like I did kind of, I mean, as we all know, like everyone was having a rough time. Like everyone was freaking out. So I was like, I don't know. I think we should just roll with it, luckily they gave positive feedback and it felt the same way.
But that's always the danger, as a singer presenting lyrics to a band, there is always that danger where someone's going to go, okay, dude, maybe it's not all about you,
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of has to be, because if you're not feeling it, and the proof is in the pudding. The result is, as you said, that you now feel like this is the record that you're most proud of, and that's because there's the biggest chunk of you in it.
Yeah, it was one of the hardest records. It was probably the hardest record we've ever made, both lyrically and then technically, everything. So yeah, it is, I think, without question, the record I'm most proud of at this point. Every bit of it was a slog. The kind of thing, like Shawshank Redemption, like you're crawling through the poop pipe, like it was like that, and then you get to the end.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of Shawshank before there's any redemption. Yeah, absolutely. But it works, and it's and also I have to say, I am a big fan of having plastic screens in front of drummers, whether there's a pandemic or not. Just just wall them off,
Yeah.
wall them off, you know. Well, this is, I mean, I really do think the album's an incredible achievement. So much so that buying the CD from your website ended up costing me $26.
Oh yeah, shipping to the UK.
Yeah, man. But luckily, I didn't have to pay like import duty on top of it when it arrived. It seemed to slip through, so that was cool. You've made an album available that was previously only available on vinyl, and you've made it available for free digitally, which is a live album recorded in a cave. I mean, you know, you guys clearly love to do things very, very normally, the same way, just boring, traditional.
Well, slight correction is the free record. Okay. The free record we released digitally was our Live at Freak Valley.
Right. Okay.
So that, but we did record a record in a cave, and that will be available, but not for free.
Right. So that's to come. That's one of the three.
Yes. Yep. I can't give too many details, but that is our second record of the three.
I think the press release should be second album in a group of three. This was recorded in a cave. That's it. You know,
yeah.
That's yeah.
It. I think we sent out a little blast about it a week or two ago, and I think that's pretty much what all it was.
I think I saw that. I think that's what I'm getting that from.
Yep. So,
well, you know, but the thing is, it's like, it's not the kind of press release you get every day. I mean, you know, my eyes were already looking for, like, you know, anything about you guys. And in fact, I tweeted you guys and said, any chance you come on the podcast, who handles your press? And nothing happened, which is cool. That happens all the time. And then what your PR agent is one of the people who regularly sends me stuff, and you guys were in the subject line, and I was like, yeah, awesome. And then I opened it up, and it's like, album in a cave, one album of three. These guys are even more insane than I realized.
Yeah, I will say the cave idea was extremely ambitious. It was an insane experience. One that I don't know if we'll ever do anything like that again, but it was really cool to do it. We're really excited for the finished product, which we're just waiting on receiving at this point. But
it's a very Pink Floyd-esque thing to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, Pink Floyd is one of our, I think each of us, it's one of our favorite bands. And, you know, like I've always, like, I grew up loving Live at Pompeii. I wanted to do our, you know, Live at Pompeii. And this was actually Scott, our drummer. He had the idea to do it. He mentioned to the band, like, hey, what if for the second record, what if we did this? What if we recorded it at this place? And we're like, I don't know. I've never been there. This could be crazy. Like, is it possible? And he's like, I think so. Yeah. I went and visited it with my son. I think it would work out. And we kind of just rolled with it and did it.
Dude, you got to be careful where he goes on days out with his son.
Yeah. Next thing you know.
Yeah. He's going to be recording in playgrounds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. It's like, yeah, I thought about, why don't we do an album in a cave? Well, I happen to know of a cave where we might be able to record. I don't even know how that conversation starts. I mean, he volunteered, he was at a cave, and maybe you could record an album in it.
He was there. He was, I'm trying to think of how to say stuff without giving too much away, but it is like, it's a tourist attraction, like they have infrastructure. It's not like a random cave in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So he had been there and yeah, he mentioned it, and I was like, oof, me being the audio engineer that I am, I was like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
And we kind of it was kind of like a leap of faith. Like he had scouted it. Like I said, he was there, but I had never been there. I knew nothing. I knew nothing what it looked like. And it was the kind of thing you think you can prepare for, but you can't really like fully prepare until you're there with the band making noises. And they're like, oof, all right, here we go. This is the sound, it's the sound of the cave. Like there's no escaping it, you know?
I was just going to say, as an audio engineer, that is literally like, there's no tweaking the reverb in this place. You know,
Yeah.
we're done with this. This is it. But there's something really cool about that, and I have to say, I've got to say it because obviously I'm a comedian as well. But this album is going to make you the most underground band of 2021. Yeah, it is. But it's just a crazy idea. I love it, and just putting yourselves out there and be willing to try it. Was there ever a point where you just kind of like, you know, maybe one song in, or you're thinking, do you know what, this is probably not going to work? Or was it just fully committed? We go from beginning to end and let's see what we get. And if it's usable, we use it. And if it isn't, we don't.
Oh, there was a lot of doubt for sure, but there was no going back. You know, like we were there. Like there was no going back.
Yeah.
We had hired, like I didn't do the engineering for it. We brought an engineer. So, but like we were paying people to be there, and we had rented the space, you know, like they didn't let us do it for free. We had to pay, you know, rent the space and had to do all the stuff. And
what is the going rate for renting a cave these days to record an album in?
I don't know, actually. I didn't handle any of that stuff, but I know we paid. But yeah, we were there, you know, there was no going back. It was just, we're going to do it, you know, here we go.
Yeah.
And like you said, hopefully this is usable.
Yeah.
We'll see, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so, yeah, there was no, like I said, I think there was a lot of doubts the whole time, but you also have to kind of just like, you have to just go, you have to roll with it, you know?
Yeah. And was this material that you had previously jammed and pieced together and sent to the guys, or was this stuff you'd had a chance to work on together?
It was stuff that was pieced together and sent to the guys. But then we did have a couple weeks of rehearsals leading up to it, to get it really, like, to fine tune everything.
Yeah.
And it was stuff that, like, part of what gave Scott the idea, I think, is it is, again, I don't want to give too much away, but it's a little more like long form, you know, like the songs are longer. It's a little like more jammier and flowier than Burden. So it was like, oh, this would work. We could, in theory, do this live, you know, record it live. We could pull this off. As opposed to, you know, what Burden was very much more technical. There's a lot more layers. There's a lot of things coming and going. So that was that needed to be done in a studio.
Yeah. And okay, so the album's recorded, and there's a third one to come. At what stage are you with that?
We're still in the production stage. Part of what, I don't know, so if you saw that press release, we did have, when we finished the second record and sent it off for pressing,
lights on,
we got bad news about it, about the timeline, and everything and then it was like, oh, okay, like, you know, Burden had a lot of delays with the vinyl pressing, and those delays just kind of kept growing, so everything got pushed back. So realistically, we're not going to be able to get the third record out this year. But so we had to push everything. We had to push the third record into 2022.
But you know, there's worse things, as we know. You know, if we're coming out of a pandemic, we've got vaccines. You know, we can walk around again, depending on what part of the world you're in, obviously.
Yeah.
But and I guess these three records are going to be like kind of milestones in your lives. Never mind the career of the band.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I was really bummed when it became obvious that we were going to have to push the third record into 2022, particularly because when I found out, I had literally just done, I think, like an interview that day, and someone was like, "Are you sure you're going to be able to release 3 records in the year?" And I was like, "Yeah, no problem. It's gonna work out. It's gonna easy peasy." And then literally like later that day, it's like, actually, We're gonna, you know, plants are way behind schedule. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just, you know, so it kind of stunk to have to walk that back. But, you know, this is what happens when you try to do dumb, ambitious ideas, I guess.
This is what happens when you are like massively ambitious and you look to do triple what most people would do in a year. But look, you know, if you aim for the moon, if you end up with the stars, then it's all good. You know, you go big or go home, and
yeah.
That's exactly what you've done, which is incredible. You're talking to somebody here that took 29 years to get our third album out. Okay, so you know, which ironically was just before the pandemic hit. So I know better than most people how hard it is to actually get stuff together and put one album out. I mean, putting 3 out in a year, putting 3 out in 2 years is still phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. But I can also appreciate the frustration as an artist myself. I can also appreciate that you have the concept, and this is how you envisage it, and that's how you want to deliver it. And when something gets broken from your original concept, it's frustrating without a doubt.
Yeah. And it's for me, it's like a little embarrassing, you know, like I felt a little bit like made this big claim and then it's like, yeah, I'm not going to do it. You know, like it was kind of a little embarrassing. Like my grandma used to say, like growing up, you know, like you're piling your plate with food and she's like, you're eating with your eyes, you know, when you have this big plate of food and then all of a sudden you can't finish all your food. It's like you try to eat with your eyes, not with your mouth and stomach. And I felt, you know, so I felt a little bit of that, but you know, it's everything, you know, it's just like everything's super delayed right now. You try to buy any sort of products nowadays and things are back ordered, and it's the way of the world right now. And, you know, not much you can really do about it besides roll with the punches.
No, absolutely. And I was brought up in Yorkshire in England, and we had the same phrase, but the phrase was, your eyes are bigger than your belly.
Yeah. It's probably a more eloquent way to say it. Leave it to the English to have a more eloquent way to say something.
Oh, mate, it's not eloquent with a Yorkshire accent, because this is how it's said: your eyes are bigger than your belly.
Yeah,
that's not particularly eloquent, I got to be honest. But funnily enough, I liked eating with your eyes. I like that. Another one I heard recently, which was just brilliant, is well, I remembered it recently. A previous relationship, the grandmother of the girl I was with, one of the clocks in her house was always slow. And I looked at it and I said, "Is that the right time?" And she said, "Oh, that one never tells the truth."
Yeah. That's a polite way to put it.
Yeah. What a great way of putting. Yeah, that clock's wrong. Yeah.
It's broken. No, it just doesn't tell the truth.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, but she was Welsh, and it's very poetic of, you know, of the Welsh. And I wanted to ask you, do you feel more of a singer than a guitarist? Are you more of a guitarist than a singer? Is it an even split? You know, how's that developed over the years?
I've always considered myself a guitar player that happens to sing.
Yeah.
As we've progressed as a band, I've started to feel more like I need to take singing a little more seriously, you know,
yeah.
You know, and as I age too, you know, like I don't have the same voice I did 8 years ago, you know.
Yeah.
And we're playing longer sets, you know, like it's one thing when you're showing up and you're playing 35 minutes, you know, you can have a few beers of whiskey, smoke some cigarettes, and you'll be fine. You know, when you got to do an hour and a half every night, now all of a sudden you need to, like, you know, you got to be able to get through it. And people are paying money to come see you. It's not, I feel bad showing up and phoning it in or doing a bad job because I was having too many recreational activities to do a good job, you know? Yeah. So I'm, you know, I wouldn't by any means say I'm, like fully develop the habits of a professional singer. But it is something that I do try to work on more and more, you know, as things progress. Yeah.
Well, look, don't worry. I'm a singer, and I haven't fully developed the professional habits of a singer yet either. So, it happens. But one of the hardest things, certainly for me, and I think you might be similar, is one of the things that you kind of have to do less of is talking, and and I really struggle with that.
I guess it depends on the situation. There'll be plenty of situations where you can get me going and I won't be able to shut up. But especially during the pandemic, I wasn't going anywhere, so it's just me and my girlfriend and our dog in the house, and she was working in her office next door. So, I would go most of the day and saying only like 5 sentences here and there, so yeah, no, I mean, I don't know.
But it's difficult when you're around a band environment as well, and people want to talk to you, and people want to ask you questions, or it's something I've always struggled with. I mean, I've only learned I've refreshed my warm-up routine after 20 years, because my warm-up routine was like nothing basically. And now I have a warm-up routine and a warm-down routine as well, which is that was a new one on me.
That's probably something I need to look into. For me, I like with all the talking and everything, I don't like before a show, I don't really talk too much because I have to warm up with voice and guitar. So I'll be in the green room really for most of the show, like kind of preparing. And then after the show is when I'll just start yapping, and I won't stop. But probably a cool down would be a good way to help,
Yeah. Well, it's like anything, isn't it? You go to the gym, you warm up, you go to the gym, and then you stretch off afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the exact same thing. It's a muscle, and it's high notes and then dropping and arcing down kind of 5 notes, and then dropping down and holding the low note and letting it reverberate. And then you just, it's the opposite of scales. You start high and you start straight high and you just bring it down and high and down. But you're just arcing it all the time. And I swear by it. The weird thing is as well, is that it kind of, because your notes, like before a show, it's like scales up, scales down, scales up, scales down, come on, let's get going. But after the show, it's like, and you kind of, I've found it a great way of actually kind of decompressing after a gig as well, because you work on your breathing. It's not like, don't be gasping it, just suck it in. And dude, I have it on MP3. I will send you. I'll send you my warm down on MP3, and it's this gorgeous Scottish singing teacher that I have, and she's got this gorgeous Scottish voice, and it's so lilted. Dude, you will be blissed out at the end of this warm down, right?
Great. Yeah, I look forward to seeing that. Yeah, I actually, I did look into taking voice lessons semi recently, but during the pandemic, obviously couldn't, people weren't meeting up. There wasn't a lot of in-person stuff. Once vaccines rolled out, I was like, oh, this might be a good time. But I was still seeing a lot of remote stuff, and knowing myself, like I don't think it's not going to be effective. Like I can't really practice in my house. I can't get out of my own head. My girlfriend's on Zoom calls for her job next door. I'm not gonna, I know I'm going to be in my own head thinking about the neighbors and everything's like, I have to be able to go into a place and do it. But I look forward to checking out these cool down exercises.
Look, I'm exactly the same. I have neighbors below me. I have neighbors above me. But when you've got your first show after 18 months and it's main stage of a major festival, I was like, okay, I've got to put those neighbors out of my head. And instead what I did was I watched, and they both go out to pick up the kids from school at the same time. And that gives me like a 55 minute window.
Perfect.
Exactly. But towards the end of it, towards the end of it, I'm like, I'm singing, but I'm getting nearer and nearer the window so I can see because I don't want them to catch me singing.
Yeah. Well, it's because also like singing exercises sound so weird to anyone. Like it's usually not like very musical a lot of the time. Like I don't know. I remember. So I like sang in when I was in like the church choir. I like sang in school and had to take voice in college. But that was years and years and years ago. But there's these stupid exercises like Mama made me mash my M&Ms. Like, why are you yelling? Why are you singing Mama made me mash my M&M? You know, like, and like really like and getting it up into your nose. I was like, no one wants to listen to that. No one wants to hear that. But like, what is this weirdo doing? You know?
well, look, I've got another thing for you. Okay. I'm honestly, you're getting all this for free. I paid like a lot of money for singing lessons, and you can just have them for free. Okay. So the other thing is, get a small bottle of water. Okay. And you'll have seen them somewhere, or you can order them off Amazon, and it's like a rubber straw. Okay. And they're like these big rubber straws. Okay. And you get the rubber straw, and you put it in the bottle of water, and you put a little bit of water in the bottom, and you do scales. So I put earplugs in. I'm given scales, and you do the scales through the straw into the water. Your girlfriend in the next room doesn't even know you're doing it. Never mind the neighbors. But also it helps keep your mouth in the right shape, because when you use a straw, the way you pinch it with your mouth, that keeps the arch of your mouth open, because a lot of people will sing with a flat top of the mouth, and they're trying to squeeze it out, but it makes you go like, and it gives you that love. Honestly, I hope people are watching the video. If you're just listening to the audio of this, good luck. Okay. but basically that helps you keep your posture, and keep your throat in the right place, and keep the roof of your mouth, the arch of your mouth in the right place. And no one knows you're doing it. So you can walk around doing scales through a straw into a little bottle of water. And I've found that to be really, really useful, because you just do it once, if you're between shows, if you haven't got any shows for a long time, it just keeps your voice used to working at that level. And there's no kind of straining going on. You're just doing scales. And it's really, really useful, really useful. So there you go. Top tip. Try that one, man.
Rubber straw and a bottle of water. Who'd have thought?
Absolutely. That sounds like a comedy act.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely worth doing. And I'll definitely send you the warm down as well.
Yeah, cool.
But funnily enough, the question I asked you was a version of the question that I've asked a few people. And in fact, I interviewed Fish from Marillion, or he was in Marillion way back in the day. And he volunteered that he feels like he's more of a writer than a singer. And I interviewed Suzanne Vega, who guests on our album. Very weird combination of thrash metal and Suzanne Vega. Long story. But I interviewed her, and I was like, Fish was telling me that he feels more like a writer who can sing. And she was like, yeah, no, I absolutely get that. And that's how I feel as well. And given the conversation we had earlier about lyrics, what's your relationship with lyrics and writing like? And it seems like it might be going through some kind of change.
Yeah, I think it is definitely kind of going through a little bit of a change. Lyrics have always been extremely difficult for me. It's just something I've always struggled with. I'm such like a critic. Like it'll take me 2 hours to write one line, because I'm constantly editing it, like till I get it exactly where I want it. So I think like I'm sort of a reluctant lyricist, but I think like with our kind of music, like I never really have tried to have the vocals be front and center, if that makes sense. Burden a little more than usual, but I've always kind of, you brought up Pink Floyd, and I've always kind of thought of things in sort of like the Pink Floyd sense, where everything is working with everything else, the vocal melody is supposed to work in concert with everything else around it, as opposed to, the singer, like the singer's going,
I'm here. Listen to me.
Right. So I've always kind of been, I guess, like treated like what I do is a little more of like composing and arranging and producing. And then lyrics are honestly, they're usually the last thing that get done for every song. It's very rare that I have lyrics and then form a song around the lyrics. It's almost always we have this band arrangement, and then I'll put lyrics to that. So, which is strange. I'm trying to take more of a, as I grow as a musician and everything, I do try to get a little more deliberate and I guess like ahead of the game with lyrics, but it's still always for me the last thing to come. I always try to create, they're always sort of part of the mood of whatever it is that I'm working on, right? So I'll even like lay out the whole album instrumentally. I'll have all of the arrangements pretty much done, and I'll have vocal mumblings in there, like I'll have like a melody,
Yep.
like those hum stuff, and then I'll write to the mood arc that I'm trying to do for the record and say, okay, this song's going to be about this is going to be that, and it's going to have this whole 45-minute movement is, so I think I went off on a tangent there. I don't.
No, you didn't at all, because to me, it sounds like you're making everything much harder for yourself, because you're writing to order. So, and that's really difficult, especially if you've got all the music there and you're going, right, well, this has to be this and that and this and that's really fucking hard.
Yeah,
because you are writing to order instead of having jotted stuff down and created lyrics in places and already having stuff that you go, well, actually, this stuff I've got here, instead of it being music, it's a bunch of words, and it's like, well, this bunch of words goes like on top of that stuff, and this bunch of words goes on top of that stuff, and
right.
And I mean, I'm like, I'm always like scribbling stuff down, but that's just who I am. Words have always been my thing, and I'm, I don't play an instrument or anything like that. It's like words, singing, podcast, stand up, we'll talk for food, basically. But what you're doing is on top of all of the musical work that you're doing, that's incredibly difficult to then. I couldn't do that if you gave me like that completed music and went, right, well, this is the vibe, right to that, and I'd be like, well, I'm out, dude, I'm sorry. Like, that's really tough.
It is. I mean, it's, for me, it's really difficult, but I don't know. I've tried, every time I'm like, okay, I'm going to give myself an exercise where I'm just going to like write for 10 minutes a day or something like that. Like I do it for like 2 days and then I stop. Like for me, like I can pick up a guitar and I will noodle around, and I can do that for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. To sit and be present with my thoughts and try to write them down is a horrifying experience that I never, like I always put off for as long as possible. So I'm not saying the way I do it is the right way.
No.
It definitely is difficult. I don't know if I'm able to do it any other way.
Well, we the thing is, we all have our, our ways of approaching everything. And this is it. It's like there's no right way, there's no wrong way. There's your way and there's my way, and my way suits me and your way suits you. And I mean, for me, I'll have an idea in my head for a song, and they'll for some lyrics, and there'll be a couple of lines I know that are kicking around that I've written down. That movies are a great source of inspiration. Occasionally there'll be one line of dialogue which will just jump out of the script, and I'll be like, that's going into the phone. And it's like, all cats are gray in the dark. Oh wow, I'm gonna write that one down. That one just stuck in my mind, but it was literally like people are talking and that line goes out there, and I was just like, grab my phone, and whoever was with me was like, what are you doing? And I was like, that line. And they were like, what line? It's like, it doesn't matter, okay, I'm just let me do this. And I'll like create kind of it in my head, and then I will sit down and it will come out in like, and I'll be done in like 45 minutes.
Oh, but man, I'm so jealous.
Yeah. But the thing is, that sounds like, oh, right, so you've just written it, but it's been kicking around in my brain and fermenting for weeks, sometimes months. So what I'm doing there is not, it's just all come out. It's like a cathartic experience. No, there's weeks and months of thought gone into it, and it just. And then that just comes out. So the blueprint is already in there. And that's pointing to my head, listeners. And then it just comes out. But the other thing as well, is editing, and I try not to do too much editing. And I find the title of the song, if I get a title of the song first, it's a lot easier to write the rest of the song. And but listening to your process earlier, I would love it, because look, I'm a big fan of your lyrics. Okay, I'm a big fan of the lyrics on the Burden of Restlessness. I found some of them very touching and incredibly personal to me, and that's how lyrics should be. That's what all great lyrics are. They should like really hit home, and it's like, oh my God, this was written about me, you know, and that is fantastic. And so the process you described, I would love it. God, I sound like such a big-headed producer here. I would love it if you turned that lyrical process you have on its head, and you just wrote a bunch of words, and you gave it to your drummer, and your drummer took it and went, okay, well, you've got this, and you've got this, and you've got this, and then you come back and it's like, oh right, wow. Because I thought I'd written like 2-3 pages of like nonsense rubbish.
Yeah.
And because you said you're your own worst critic, and the best way of getting out of your own way is give it to someone else to edit.
Yeah, I mean, that would certainly be an interesting exercise for us as a band. I mean,
you might not want to do that.
No, I mean, I don't know. I think it could work. It's I don't know. It's you know, when I do write lyrics, you know, I'll have a lot of them, you know, they'll be for every, you know, 2 verses, there's a page or 2 of nonsense or just different ways of saying the same line, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it would be interesting to try to write sort of a story first and then the music after to fit that.
But also lyrics are deeply personal. And how they come about is deeply personal, you know. And it's like you look at our 2 processes; they couldn't be more different, you know. They couldn't be more. But ultimately, you know, as long as you arrive at the same place, which is lyrics that mean something to people, and also that you can project with complete and total honesty and faith. And I hate the word because it's been corrupted by reality TV music programs, but you're able to emote the words because that's where they come from. They come from your emotions.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's what I find to be interesting is sort of trying to walk the line of trying to say something, but
not
also
say it.
But exactly, like trying to guide someone to the final destination. You know, there are songs that I've written in the past, and people have come up and they said, "Oh, that's definitely about this," and I'm like, not at all in any way. I don't say this to them, but
yeah,
I didn't think of that when I wrote it. You know, that's really cool that you thought of it that way. And then sometimes, you know, you get the occasional person that says it's about something that I really don't want it to be about, and I'm like, yeah, you know, I maybe should have been a little clearer there on that one, you know. So it's trying to like walk that line is always interesting.
Yeah, but the thing
you don't want to like be, if it's too on the nose, then you know, then it's kitsch, you know. So yeah, it's an interesting line.
But also I think it's like you just have to do what you do, because the way other people's brains work is not something that you're ever going to be able to influence or be in charge of. And I know that exact experience because there's a song on our album called United Hates, and only today someone commented on the video on YouTube, yeah, well, you're from the UK, man, and you're fucked too. Your country's way more fucked than ours. I'm like, dude, it's got nothing to do with politics or the UK or the US. And in album reviews, people have said, and there's a song, United Hates, pretty obvious what that's about. Well, it's not about any of the things that you think it's about. It's about like the war of those United Hates are in my head. It's about what goes on inside your head when your hates unite against you and prevent you from achieving things. It's got nothing to do with politics. And there's this Trump supporting idiot like smashing his keyboard, you know, and I'm like, oh, okay, whatever, dude, you know, just back to your basement. And
Yeah.
it happens. There's nothing you
Yep.
can do.
No, there, I mean, yeah, we've had a few of those of people, you know, I tend to, you know, a lot of our songs are pretty political. If you were able to like read through it and like look at some of the source material, I think it's pretty obvious. Some people who I don't align with at all politically, I'll see them comment or, you know, say something and totally coming from the opposite end, and I'm like, they're like, oh yeah, and I'm like, oof, maybe I didn't make this clear enough. I don't want to be lumped in with that guy, you know. you know
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the internet's a weird place, so.
Oh yeah! Wow, dude, we've managed quite a long time without actually mentioning comments or the internet. My fault. I went there. I dragged that nest of vipers up. But yeah. Let's move along quickly. But and it's interesting what you say as well. You know, when people come up and like, you know, oh, you know, and it's like this really hit home for me, and it's about this or whatever, or in interviews sometimes, which I don't get it, when people ask, like interviewers ask, so what are your lyrics about? Tell us what this song's about. It's like, no, that's no, that's never going to happen, because the minute you say exactly what a song is about, you ruin it for a number of people who've personalized it to them. And for them, that's what it's about, you know?
Yeah, it's so much better when, I mean, in an ideal world, everyone would come to the conclusion you want them to come to, but you want them to come to reach that endpoint on their own. Like you said, otherwise it kind of is less interesting, you know, like the trying to figure out what a song is about is part of the allure of the song, you know?
Yeah.
I think. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you know, as I always say, it's like, you know, what do you think that song's about? And they tell me, and it's like, okay, well, that's what it's about then. For you, that's what it's about. And I'm not going to mess with that. I wrote the words, but words are there to be interpreted. That's history tells us that. So, you know, that's what it's about for you. And sometimes it's nice to actually have a completely different take on something written and go, wow, okay, yeah, I guess if I applied, yeah, right, yeah, I see where they're coming from. I mean, like, that was never in my head, but that's an interesting take on it. And also I think it's really important, you know, you're a Floyd fan, I'm a Floyd fan. Lyrics were always something I was deeply interested in growing up when I first got into music. And over the years, with the advent of digital music and everything else, you know, they've become to less and less meaningful. You know, people don't get a lyric book usually with a download. And, you know, now we have lyric videos, which is the equivalent of the bouncing ball. And I just think it's really important to maintain credibility with lyrics, because, as I always say to people, you know, publishing is often paid 50% on the music, 50% on the words. That's how important lyrics are.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, like, as far as sort of copywriting a song, you can really only copyright the vocal melody and the lyrics, as far as I know. Like, you can't. It gets loose, and I could be completely wrong. I'm not a you know, an entertainment lawyer, but you know, it's very difficult to copyright a drum beat and a chord progression. You know, people have argued it, and I guess it can be done, but
yeah, but those people can afford very
expensive lawyers.
Very expensive entertainment lawyers, of which neither of us are them. Yeah. But it's credibility. It's credibility. It's like a friend of mine's daughter he was telling me how much she is into music, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. What kind of music is she into? And you know, I can't remember what it was, and I said, oh, and what about the lyrics? And she just said, oh, I'm not bothered about the words. And I was just kind of a little bit of me died inside, you know. I was kind of like, really, not bothered about the words? That's like, so I did my whole 50% and publishing explanation, and she just kind of looked at me like I was, you know, speaking Swahili.
I will say I definitely was that way for a very long time. There was artists that I, one of the first records that I really listened to start to finish that really changed my life was Animals, Pink Floyd's Animals. And
Cool.
that was one where like the lyrics, I mean, they're right there and they're easy enough to understand what it is they're talking about. But then, you get into, I'm not going to like say any specific artists, but there's a lot of stuff, it's kind of what the difference. I remember I took a music history course in college, and one of the big debates was like art music versus pop music. Right. And like they can often overlap quite a bit, but like there's music to dance to and to have a good time. And then there's music, and like let's be honest, really the words don't really matter in a lot of that stuff,
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. And that's
like
cool.
it's not the purpose of it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So it's like, what is something falling into, like if it's like designed to be an art piece, then the lyrics are very important. But if it's designed to just, music I think has an important function in a way to like to be sort of providing an avenue for just like fun, good times, right? Like
Yeah,
dance music,
absolutely.
pop music. It's great. And the words are kind of there as filler
Yeah.
for a lot of it. They have to be like relatable, like they're important, but it's not the same as, writing, I don't know, Imagine, it's not the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But look, there's, I'm a passionate about lyrics and stuff like that. But Dave Lee Roth, Eat 'Em and Smile, great album. There's nothing of substance on there lyrically.
No.
Woo, Yankee Rose, nah. But again, the parallel is movies. There's movies there that is just going to look, I just want to sit down and make me laugh. I want to sit down and I want to feel good at the end of this. And there's something else, there's 2.5 hours with Shawshank Redemption. Hey, you can't watch that every day.
Right. Yeah. There's the Avengers, and then there's Parasite, like
yeah.
not in the same genre,
Yeah. Two great examples. Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like, it's about mood, and neither one is more valid than the other. It's ultimately, you get fans of either movie who will sit down and tell you why one is better than the other. But of course, it's art, so there's no such thing as better. There's just your opinion and my opinion, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, like I talk about how much I love Pink Floyd, but then like I love AC/DC, and like
yeah,
let's. It's not they're not like painting the Mona Lisa lyrically, but they freaking rock, man. Like, and the stuff comes on, and you can't help but like, yeah, man. You get a little pumped up, So
yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the live band that I have seen more than any other is Slayer. Okay, now lyrically, just like digging people up and serial killers and all that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there are the occasional song where there's something to be said, but mostly the lyrics are just a backdrop to the music, and it's gonna be nasty and hard because the music is nasty and hard, but it's not really saying anything, but it works perfectly.
Yeah, it's reinforcing providing the glue for the mood and the attitude.
Yeah, exactly. It's emphasizing the intensity, and that's great. But I'm a huge fan of Marillion. I'm a huge fan of Descendants, who write beautiful, simple lyrics. And I'm always quoting Carl Alvarez, Descendants bass player, who just says like we write about we don't write about how you think, we write about how we feel. And it's like, wow, he just put in one sentence what I've been trying to put into a sentence for years.
Yeah, I saw that. Just made me think of, I think I saw a viral clip of Victor Wooten, the bass player. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's a very good bass player. He's on like the Mount Rushmore of living bass players. He's insane.
Right, okay.
And he does a lot of clinics and a lot of educational things.
Yeah.
And he was quoting Maya Angelou, and he said, when you die, people aren't going to remember the things you said. They're going to remember the way you made them feel. And that music is the same way. It's like, no one's going to care if you're playing 12 notes in a bar. if you can play 3, like it's going to be about the feeling you made them feel when you played or when you perform. And I thought that was really interesting. And it is, I mean, it's Maya Angelou. She's like, you know, thinker, you know, one of the all-time thinkers. So it was just like, oh yeah, that's such like a good way to put it. Like, yeah, it's really about how you make people feel rather than, you know, the X's and O's lined up perfectly. You did a great job. You know, that's important, but the feeling is the goal.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's songwriting, especially in like in a metal, which is, you know, very much my genre. They, you know, sometimes people can get hook, you know, they can get hung up on technicality and ability, and it's like, look, it's not how many riffs there are in the song, it's how good is the song. It's, you know, people's ability to play is not worth anything if there isn't a good song to play. All music is about songwriting.
Yeah,
that's it. Whether it's pop, whether it's high art, whether it doesn't matter. It's just about songwriting.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, not to toot our own horn, but I think that's we're a perfect example. Like, as far as like individual players go, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people that could play us under the table, you know, and on every instrument, you know, like we're proficient, we're adequate, you know, but it's really about the 3 of us and the sounds we make together. That's the only thing that makes us at all unique. And you know, like if I was to try to show up at a Guitar Center guitar off, I'd be laughed out of the room. You know, like there's people that are going to show up, 12-year-olds are going to show up and they're going to shred me under the table. You know, 60-year-old investment bankers are going to show up and they're going to shred me under the table, you know. And you know, technicality is important, but yeah, like you said, it is 100% about the way you come together as a group and make people feel with the sounds you make.
And what you said there as well is one thing that I love about a band, which is it's a bunch of musicians who might not stand out together, but when they come together, they are greater than the sum of their parts. You know, and that and you know, to use the reference of Slayer and yourselves, it's like, you know, you said it yourself, a bunch of musicians that individually wouldn't get an audition for certain bands, but when together, it's that unique chemistry creates something that is, you know, greater than the sum of its parts. And that's always something to strive for, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I don't know. I think the idea of just jamming and making noise with your friends is, I don't know. When I encounter young people like getting, you know, really into music at a young age, it's like find friends that are into music and then make noise together. And like, that's the most valuable thing you can do. You know, the bedroom tapes are fun, but like, it's really when you get in a group of people that sort of magic starts to happen.
Yeah. And I also think it's like that, you know, I hate the word fans, but to use that word, I think what fans forget sometimes, and bands are guilty of doing this as well, what fans forget sometimes is that bands are just a bunch of music nerds. That's all. It's like, you're a fan. Well, I'm a fan too. I'm just like a bigger fan. It's like listening wasn't enough. I had to go make some as well. So I'm just a bigger nerd than you. That's all, you know?
Yeah. It's, you know, it's, I don't know. I know for me, like, it's really all I've ever really been passionate about, or sort of like it always kind of making noise kind of came easily, you know, like, again, like I'm not like a proficient in the guitar virtuoso, but like pulling a note out of any instrument has always been something I've been able to do. And I've always been fascinated by just noises, you know, like I just think noise is so cool. And, you know, I don't know, there was a time where I was kind of into the idea of like vibrations, you know, all that, you know, that sort of idea, like sound being an extension of sort of vibrations, and, you know, all of the earth is vibrating, all this, you know, all this sort of like magical stuff. But it's, you know, I don't know, I don't really put much stock into it, but it's just interesting, you know, it's I don't know, noise is cool. I just don't know what else to say. It's like, it's really fun.
No, but I absolutely get that. And do you know what? That reminded me, when you were talking, that reminded me of, for some weird reason, it reminded me of the scene. And so we're going to cross the borders now again. We're going to bring the two worlds of movies and music together. And at Jurassic Park, that scene where there's a plastic cup on the you totally knew what I was going to do. Yeah. And the water is shaking. And how they did that was that cup is on a surface, and underneath the surface was a bass guitar string. And literally it's somebody plucking a bass guitar string that makes the water move.
Wow, I had no idea.
And that's how they did the effect, because it's like back in the early 90s. And that's how they did the effect. And it's like, yeah, there it is. It's the foundation. There's that vibration. And it wasn't a guitar string, it was a bass guitar string.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's just like, wow, yeah, that is like the whole music vibration feel of the earth. Yeah, to recreate the feeling of a thud in the earth, they used a bass guitar string. And it's
That's
like, yeah,
cool.
It's all about the vibration, man.
Yeah, totally.
Oh man, look, I've talked your ears off for a very long time now. No, I can't thank you enough for this, Sean. It's been awesome. It really, really has.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been really fun.
Oh, good, Matt. Look, I'm glad you've enjoyed it. I really am glad, and I am going to send you the warm down as well.
See, like, so, I'm getting something out of this. I'm learning about stuff. This is great. I didn't know about the Jurassic Park bass string. I didn't know about this, the rubber straw in the water bottle and the cool down exercises. Like, I think I'm the one making out in this arrangement here.
That's great. Awesome. Well, look, I'll send an invoice over. I accept PayPal.
Okay.
In fact, can I just have my $26 for the fucking CD back?
Yeah.
Sounds great, by the way, man.
Did you, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Did you get it through stickman.com or .eu, like the Stickman? They're based out of Germany. I don't know if it is a result of coming from the US to UK or Europe to UK.
US.
Okay.
US. I bought it directly from your website or like wherever that sent me. But yeah, no, it came from the States. It's all good. It's all good, man. I mean, it's like it really, that's not the kind. If I really like an album, then I'm gonna get the CD, because as much as I love vinyl, and I do love vinyl, and I love the way it sounds, but unfortunately it sounds like that for about 5 plays, and then you play it and you hear it and you go, that breaks my heart.
Yeah.
And it still does to this day. It breaks my heart.
Well, if you do ever change your mind and do want vinyl, they do all come with download codes. And in theory, our Stickman, the label that are based out of Germany, they do have them. I believe it's stickman.com or stickman.eu. And the shipping should be a lot less, but I've heard stuff. I feel like I've heard rumblings with that since Brexit, that it's tough getting things in and out. And then it gets expensive. So I can't say for sure.
It does get expensive, because when it came from the EU, when it used to come from the EU, we were in Europe, so it was no different. But now, because of Brexit coming to the UK, it's effectively, you have to pay an import tax on it, which I didn't have to. There is a way of getting around that, and that's basically put a low value on what is being sent, because you have to fill out customs declaration. So
I believe that's something that we do, but I don't.
Yeah,
I don't know if I should be saying this over there.
No, you do. No, you don't do that. You don't do that.
No, we have never ever done that ever.
No,
that's immoral, unethical.
Yeah, and you definitely didn't do that on the CD I got.
Okay.
That's the best way to go about it. If you could put your email in chat, I'll email you the warm down.
I will do that now. I think I know how to do that. I've never actually. Oh, there it is.
There it is. Yeah. And it says, look, you can message everyone. Actually, look, I'm thanks everybody. We're going to go now. And email a bit, but Sean, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me. This has been a pleasure.
It's been epic, dude. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.